Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Franchise Show. This is the show where we get under the hat of some of the most important topics in franchising. And what do we do? Well, each week we have a new topic, a lovely new guest, and we have a bit of a deep delve. We get into these conversations, and you know what? This is all about you. If you're watching, it's all about having a conversation together. And we love when you join in. We love when you add your comments. It's what this show is all about. So if you're here, put a comment in the chat box, say hello, and get into this conversation today. So what is the topic today? The topic is SEO myths as well. And we have a fantastic guest today. Today we have Michel Leconte, and he is from and founded SeoSamba. And it's an absolute pleasure to have you as our guest today, Michel. Welcome to the Franchise Show.
Thank you, Harvey. Much appreciated.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Great. Well, look, I'm gonna start off before we get into our topic today. I'm going to start off with a little story. And this is quite a special episode for me, actually, because when I first got into franchising, as most of you know, not that long ago, but one of the first things that I wanted to do is to find out who in the industry was adding value and who it would be interesting to connect with. And I came across something called the SeoSamba Top 100 Global Franchise Influencers. And I thought to myself, gosh, this is a good place to start to connect with people. And that's just what I did. I started to connect and say hello and see if I could get a connection request accepted from the wonderful people that were on this magnificent list that SeoSamba had put together. And I kept doing that and doing that. And you know what? Forward play, 9 months or so, I've snuck my way onto the list myself. Who would have thought it? And not only that, the very first sponsor of the Franchise Show was Michel and SeoSamba. And I just really wanted to start with saying a huge thank you to you, Michel, because it's a story that I have shared and I want to share. And it's something that I'm very honored to be able to talk to you and honored that you support our show. So thank you.
It's a pleasure sponsoring your show, and it's proof that work pays, and it pays off, and that's how that's great. I'm happy for you. Totally. Yeah. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah.
Well, you're absolutely welcome. Well, look, before we sort of start to introduce the topic today and sort of make an opening gambit at this, let's recognize all the wonderful people that have already joined us today. So we have Bob, and it's great to have you, Bob. Bob Forst, and he's put hello. Oh, well, hello to you, Bob. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on all things search engine optimization and marketing. We've got Katrina Newman here, and Katrina's put, hello, franchise friends. Looking forward to hearing about SEO myths. Well, as are we. We have the ever wise Simon Wise, and Simon has put, hello, franchise friends. Well, hello to you as well, Simon. And we've got Natalia, a former guest, and Natalia's put, watching from sunny Wigan and looking forward to learning lots. Well, fantastic. I'm glad it's sunny. We do like an early weather report now on the Franchise Show. Maybe I'll become a weather person. And we have Johnny Joseph from a cooling LA. Looking forward to today's show. Well, normally it's always sunny in LA, but I'm glad that it's starting to cool down. You can share some of the rain that we have here in the UK. We've got the wonderful Penny Hopkinson, another supporter of the show. Fantastic book. And let's see is it the right way around today? Is it No, it's not. Oh, fantastic. You see, this is why I love a live show, because you can do things like then correct it. Anyway, it's great to have you here. And Penny's put, hello, Harvey, Michel, and franchise friends from sunny Cornwall. And we've got another couple. We've got Sanjay, and Sanjay is an expert in all things franchise finance. And he's put, hello, franchise friends. Looking forward to Michel unraveling SEO. And last but very not least, I think you know this guy, Michel. It's the wonderful Jason Caber. Jason, always a pleasure to have you on the franchise show. And Jason has put, hey, Harvey, hey, I know this guy. Well, you do. Let's have a look. And we've got one more, actually. And we've got Tim. And it's always a pleasure to have Tim on the show. I'm sure I'll see Tim at the franchise exhibition that's coming up in a week or two. And Tim's put, good evening, everyone. Great to be here. Back from South Africa this morning. Well, that sounds absolutely delightful. So before we get into a couple of questions that have already come in from Johnny and Simon, Michel, perhaps you could give a little introduction to yourself, to what SeoSamba is for those who don't know, and a little bit of an introduction on search engine optimization.
Yeah, sure. With pleasure. So SeoSamba is a marketing automation and CRM software platform. We also have a professional service group that serves the needs of both and franchise developers brand marketing. So we based off the US, but we do also have staff in Europe. And that's basically what we do. So we tend to consolidate all kind of marketing software under one roof, and try to simplify the equation when it comes to multi-location marketing.
Fantastic. What a great introduction. Let's go to a few questions from our wonderful audience. Let's take one from Johnny. We've got questions coming up from Simon, questions coming up from Sanjay as well, but let's have a look at what Johnny's got to say. Johnny's put, what does Michel think is the most effective metric for measuring the effectiveness of online marketing? It's a great question, Johnny. How do you take this one? I mean, there must be all sorts of different ways that you can measure the effectiveness of both your local and your national marketing. But can you pick out a few that it would be useful to look at for people?
Yeah, definitely. Well, at basic level, if you track the incoming inquiries, and you can track the source of these inquiries, that would be where most people will be starting. And so based on a specific channel, you can allocate a phone number, right? That could, for instance, and so that you can tell the origin of that phone call, right? And so this can be assigned dynamically based on whether that lead is coming from a Google ad campaign, or an organic lead, or something from your Google profile, or it could be a phone number printed on brochure, for instance, right? As well. So that's one thing that you could do. You could also track the origin of leads through the web forms, right? So that would be fairly automated. When it comes to SEO, because obviously the actual lead generation or the purchase, if you have an e-commerce online, can be tracked through digital means. But when it comes to SEO, a good leading indicator are typically impressions. Impressions for your brand, for your website on the Google search engine result pages, right? Because are required before that you can get clicks. At the progression in terms of number of impressions that your website gets, it's usually going to give you a good sense of which direction you are heading. And so what I like to do when it comes to simply to the Google Search Console, and you can even take a free account on SeoSamba and get the data by connecting the console. Now, at the same time, when it comes to organic efforts to SEO, you do want to track as well a list of keywords, the one that are going to bring business in. So not only on one side you got the general, if you will, awareness, the impression, the overall health of your website that will drive the overall number of impressions that you will get. But at the same time, you want to be also very specific in terms of what you are aiming for and what you are targeting, and that's what the keyword list will help you do, right?
Fantastic. Yeah, I love that. I mean, finding the origin of a phone call, for instance, is just a really useful tool. Sometimes if you've got a business, whether that's a franchise business, whether that's any business, and you're starting to become successful, you've got to know why you're successful to continue that trajectory. So yeah, I think that's some really interesting stuff. Let's have a look at a comment here from Simon. Simon has put, how does a new franchise website establish a presence on Google search engines without spending a fortune? Yeah, I mean, I think Google and how you're found on that, to a lot of people, is a bit of a mystery as to what you should do in order to get yourself found or on those first few pages. Is it just being sponsored, or are there a few basic things that you can do if you're a new franchise company, a new business?
Well, so obviously you can pay your way inside the search engine result, right? By actually running some Google Ads campaigns. So that's one way to do it, and we can come back to that because there is a lot to be said in that arena. But when it comes to organic, which is really the part where, from Simon that mentioned without spending a fortune, right? Typically, what you need to look at is really at what level you need to compete. Let me explain. If you think about, for instance, franchise lead directories are going to surface for very general keywords, maybe so forth. So you get a huge volume of keywords, right? And some of these people are going to inquire, with some franchise brands that are being listed on those directories. Typically, it's not very qualified, right? Many people who actually buy franchise leads from those directories are aware of that. So it's not always the case, but compute all these, you see whether it works for you. But if you go one level down, and you can find an entire sector, right? So it could be, for instance, a keyword like a food franchise, or even, and that's big business. That's the turf for well-established brands. Those are the ones who can compete really for those type of organic keywords, right, on Google. But then if you go one level down from there, right, and more likely a potential franchisee would be looking for opportunities into a specific industry that they have developed affinities for instance, and that would be a keyword like pizza franchise, right? If we keep that example, and that's probably what most brands can reasonably hope to dominate at some point. This would be the long-term objective. But then the question is, what do you do in the meantime? The issue is that you cannot really compete for that long-term objective, run out of steam before that you can translate progress on that objective into actual leads. So what you need is intermediary objectives that will actually help you, get fuel in that tank. And so if you look at a subset of the industry, if we keep the food business and the franchise business, right? You franchise, right? So it's an attribute of your franchise offering. Or it could be a gimmick, something that is not well necessarily very widely shared within the industry. So it could be something like pizza and taproom franchise, right? And so because it's obviously it's achievable. It's more than, those terms that we've seen before. Inquiries are going to be fewer, but quite qualified. That's interesting to rank those keywords. Now, because you don't necessarily compete on the entire nation, right? If you're in the US, for instance, and maybe FDD isn't approved, right, across, you also can decide to limit your geographical scope and decide to focus your effort on some specific states. And because you do that, you can more effectively compete, right, for the most interesting positions, right? And so the way to achieve results faster is basically to pick some angles, right? To exploit some of those angles, and there are others, of course, but that would be my advice, right? So narrow it down and explore so that you can get results, right?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that, Michel. I really like that, because you can get more niche, more specific, and I think that's really important. And how do you go about when you found your keyword that you want to try and use? You've gone from the food industry to a particular industry. You used pizza there as an example. Then you've gone to a location or a particular type of pizza, and you've gone a bit more niche. Do you just fill your website with these words? Or is there a more creative way of doing it? Do you use YouTube or other social media to do that? I think it's a similar to a question actually that Simon's put. Can you find out and copy what keywords the most successful franchise websites use to gain traction for their own website, like you can do on YouTube? Yeah. How do you get these keywords into Google apart from paying for them? Is it just putting it into websites and other things that appear online?
Yeah. So that to keep things simple, there are basically two areas on which plays, right? One side is everything that is the on-site and your on-site presence. It has to do with the technical framework, if you will, of the website, the readability of the website by Google bots, to do with the content that is on the website, and that includes not only the keywords and all the copy that is on the website, but any kind of interactive features that you might have on the videos on the website, for instance, is a very good idea. Why? Because watch videos, it's an easy way to convey information across, and engagement as a result with the website is going to be higher. People are going to dwell, more on the Google gets those metrics. As a result, find that website is worth essentially visiting, right? And will in turn over time gratify you of additional traffic, right? But generally speaking, so all the technical attributes, all the content, features that actually help with engagement metrics, right, and the experience of the user is one area that SEO focuses on. And so typically, SaaS will audit websites and add the targeting against your objectives in terms of the suitability of keywords, how likely you are to achieve those keywords, but also how likely those keywords would be able to drive meaningful inquiries to your business. That's one thing. And then the other thing is about how the rest of the world website. And so that has to do with what people are typing into Google in relation to your brand. That has to do with how your brand is being mentioned on other websites, including social media as well, and how other websites back to your website. And so this is another area of development, really, for the SEO professionals, right? And so the two combined will get you the final, recipe or position, if you will, results,
Recipe, I
for
like
the
that.
site.
The recipe.
Yeah. So how do you identify the keywords? Well, you have a sense of what, how impactful it would be to have somebody typing such and such keyword in Google finding you, right? And from there, the professionals will use a variety of tools to identify a keyword universe. And from that keyword universe, they will be able to have to categorize those keywords across, okay, well, this has to do with your competitors. This has to do with your brand, eye of your market, so those people that are really ripe for actually business. And then this is the really the industry as a whole, right? And then you go with concentric circles like that, right? And then you can cherry pick, compete. You can compete effectively for.
Fantastic. Yeah, really interesting. I mean, there's so much good stuff here. One word that I picked up, and I will be going to some comments here by Ed, by Bob, by Paul, and by Sanjay. So if you're made a comment, we will definitely be getting to those without doubt. One word that I picked up on was readability. So what does that mean in terms of the sort of the maybe it's Google AI or whatever that is reading what you're trying to put in there? Do you have to write something in a certain way to make it appeal to the readability of Google? Is that what you were saying?
Well, okay. So, right, since actually do SEO, right? My background was, in IT, in IT service business, doing networking, web development type of engagement. And initially, I got into SEO just to market our own business as we were, adding on, and we had some success we wanted to replicate that success across the market. We were opening in LA, in Sacramento, and then to the East Coast and so forth. And that's really the starting point of this SeoSamba idea that I've actually funded many many years later, which was how do you replicate success at scale? When it comes to SEO. And by now I totally forgot what the question was, Harvey.
That's okay. I picked up on a word that was readability, and is that software that is being used to read the content that you're putting out?
Since those times, right? Google algorithm have made tremendous progress, right? The understanding of what the web page as progress by leaps and bounds. You don't need so much to focus. You do want your but what you need to do is to write something that is interesting, first and foremost, right? For your Google part, the of itself, pretty much. When it comes to the actual copy on the website. Why? Because it's interesting. If it will get picked up by external sources, they will link back to that content, and then Google will see essentially that value because that article that content is being linked, right? The readability aspect also applies more from a coding standpoint. That's the part that you want to make sure that you have absolutely right. And so there are techniques to ensure that there's nothing preventing the bot from actually accessing the content, right? So readability can be heard at two different levels. One, on the copy side of things, and I would not worry too much, about it. I would try to do something to write some my audience, and that's really my primary concern. And then the second part here has to do with reality of the website, and that's something that you delegate to technical people.
Get it. And I love that, actually, because that's such a simple message for anybody who's watching this when they're trying to think about some of those technicalities, to just write something that's of interest to your audience and keep it as simple as that. And then if you get somebody like the wonderful SeoSamba who knows exactly what they're doing in terms of interpreting that so that it can be comfortably read by the clever bots that do that, then that's fantastic. Look, let's go to a few other questions and recognize a few other people that are here. If you have just joined us, this is the Franchise Show, and today we are talking SEO myths with the wonderful Michel Leconte from SeoSamba, and it's been a great conversation so far. Let's have a look. Let's recognize the fact that we've got Paul Sims all the way from Pittsburgh. Great to have you here, Paul. He's a fantastic advocate of what I do on a Sunday to help anybody who's lost their job. So it's great to have you here, Paul. We also have Nick Plevin from eTalent, and go on as you're here, Nick. I'm going to do it for you. Here you go, and there is your wonderful QR code. Great to have you here, Nick, and thank you for your support. Let's have a look. Let's recognize the fact that we've got Ed Purnell here. Great to have you here, Ed. Ed is a fantastic person in the UK franchise industry. He organizes lots of wonderful events, including the Franchise Innovation Think Tank and the Franchise Social that happens before our wonderful franchise exhibitions. And he's a lovely chap, so it's always good to have you here, Ed, and lovely to hear your thoughts about today's topic. Let's go to a comment here from Bob. Let's see what Bob's got to say. Bob has put here, how does a company grade the success of an SEO campaign and grade the costs versus the success? It's a tricky one, isn't it? You know, to get that return on investment. But how would you take this question here from Bob, Michel?
So, Bob, I would not take SEO as quote unquote a campaign. To me, SEO is a fundamental to digital marketing, so it's an ongoing activity. It's not something you switch on and off a paid ads campaign. SEO is something day in, day out, because you would have actually integrated into your marketing activities, potentially even your operations. In fact, if you can embed SEO within your operation, that's even better. So you're able to have folks posting project details from the field, something that they just realized, and that this actually creates a page, a project page on your website. That's super. That's excellent, right? Yeah. Because in marketing within your operation. So as people are doing the job, they need to upload the picture, they need to write a little summary. You know what? That gets published because this is content, and we're going to leverage for marketing purposes. So if you can think, ways to actually do that within the organization, that's a total win. That's a sure win. And so that's why immense SEO is something that is hovering right there within the organization, and that anytime you get into a business meeting and that you got a deal that maybe you are in position to ask for a little sweetener, maybe the little sweetener is a link from that. Let's not forget about asking for a link back to our website, right? And have it ingrained within the organization, because anybody, really virtually anybody and everybody can help when it comes to SEO if they are just aware of to achieve some success there. Now, how would you measure it? Once again, the keyword list that you are targeting, and so you have the rankings, and you can measure your progress on Google for those specific, very specific keywords. Then I would look at the number that the website is getting, organic impressions that the website is getting from the Google Search Console over time. And this is a leading indicator, and this will give you a very clear trend about the progress that you are making, generally speaking, when it comes to SEO. And then when it comes to the actual lead generation itself, then what you want is to track both all the inquiries through all the channels. That includes texting, email, web forms, and phone inquiries. I would remove emails from, because that's a leak in the process of trying to measure, right? Because if somebody texts the email, they basically, and then you have no way to easily essentially measure what's going on. On top of that, depending on where they're sending the spam folder and so forth. So I would try to avoid all of this, keep it to an inbound text channel, an inbound web form channel, and an inbound phone numbers that would actually track as well the organic traffic, right? And that will give you what's happening. And then obviously, if that can extend to online quote request, and all the way to cart operation and payment through the website.
That's fantastic, and a great answer to that question, and a great question, Bob. Thanks for putting up there, and thanks for answering that so concisely as well, Michel. We've got some great questions here, and we will get to them. But another thing that we've mentioned it a couple of times, and I think it's really worth thinking about this a little bit more. And it was links back to your website, and you mentioned there about getting other companies that you're doing business with to link back to your website. And I didn't personally realize how important getting those links back to your website is for search engine optimization. But that's a really important element, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a critical part of it goes back to the original patent for the search rank algorithm, which is the basis of the success of Google, right? Way back 95, and the infancy of the commercial internet. Search engines, you had Yahoo, which was a basic directory. You had a search engine which was a GoTo, which was, so all the results would actually be advertisers, right? But then directories were human created, and you had no way. You had Alta Vista. You had no way a measure of the popularity of valuable people thought that particular. So the entire success of Google was based on the simple concept that a link would be a vote for a page, and so that there would be a value from linking from one page to another. And so there will be a decaying factor, different things that goes into place, but basically the fundamentals, that's what it is. And so that, to this day, this remains a very valid way of looking at promoting and enhancing the organic results of a website, is to secure links from valuable places, from relevant places, as much as possible.
Two really important words you've said there: valuable and relevant places as well. So if you've got your website and you're trying to get people to link back to it, make sure that those are people that are connected to your industry or have a real interest in what you're doing. It's important that they are valuable, like you said. I think that's really, really interesting. Let's have a little look here. I want to recognize the fact that we have got Jitin here today, former guest on the show, a franchisee, aged just 22, and a friend of the show. Always good to have you here, Jitin, and good to hear your thoughts about SEO as we continue this conversation. let's have a little look at a comment here. We've got one coming up from Johnny and one here from Simon. Now, Simon's put here, I'm sure you have many, but can you share a standout example of how you have re-energized a website with your know-how to radically improve performance and results? I'm sure there are many standout stories of helping people over the years, because you get a lot of people who really haven't done a lot with their website, and there's can be some big improvements. Other stories that stick out in your mind of helping someone in the past?
Stories that stick out of my, I mean, that's basically the what you're describing is pretty much a regular business day. The situation that we find customers in varies greatly, obviously. When it comes to franchise development, you can look at many franchise brands who are actually have a section simply for the franchise offering on their website. And so you have the corporate side, and you might have like a subfolder that hosts the franchise opportunities. And very often that section is pretty terse, right? There's not many pages that are delving into the franchise opportunities necessarily. We tend to have an outlook on things to be to maximize the real estate, because think about it. In the physical world, you are limited by real estate. How much you can purchase, how much you can extend. You got neighbors, and you can push the walls only to a certain size. But when it comes to digital, you can do whatever you want. And so why restraining yourself to just this small area on your corporate domain, right? So number one, you can definitely expand that area, trying to cover more ground, more real estate. You casting a larger net on that side. And as I alluded earlier, some of the things that you can do is that you can, for instance, create a directory of specific geographies on which you have you are aiming to open some locations in those states, right, or in those metropolitan areas. So you go to local market, and that will help. That will definitely help you surface in those local markets. And so maybe you can compete at the national level for a specific keyword, but maybe you can surface as number one for a local market in actually breaking it down, right? Breaking it down and targeting some specific areas. Or if you're an emerging sub brand, you can imagine that you don't have much brand recognition at this time, but maybe the industry, your industry is not new to the world. Some established players in that industry, so you don't need to educate people about the industry, which is a great advantage, right? Because education is expensive. Educate them, but what you can do is you don't have lots of brand recognition, but what you can do is maybe piggyback on the established brand recognition and try to propose an alternative, right? So try to propose an alternative at that point to say, hey, maybe I'm not Pizza Hut, right? If we go back to the pizza, but yeah. This is how we differ. Number one, we have territories that are open, while Pizza Hut doesn't have territories open in this state. So you know what? You're interested by opening up a Pizza Hut in this metro? Tough luck. You can't. So you need to find something else, a different vehicle endeavors. Coincidentally, we do pizza as well, but this is how we do it, and so this is a very good way to get some results in a shorter time frame than trying to go for the holy grail and the trophy keyword in your industry.
Yeah, I mean, some fascinating stuff there, actually. I think a couple of really key and fascinating pieces of advice is every franchise brand out there is going to have a franchise section of their website, and to then focus that down on some geographic areas, which of course, again, most franchisors are looking in some specific geographical regions. And therefore, then by making that section of the website at that time focusing on those regions and then sharing and getting those links posted elsewhere, suddenly you're going to start to make a little bit of inroads into that SEO. And I also find it fascinating about piggybacking on established brand names as well. Maybe we don't do this or we do something different too, and then name a competitor, because that will be picked up in the search engine as well.
Totally, yeah, totally. And so the first one, the geography will be can relate to all the mobile search and the geolocation type of search, and the second one has to do where you can cannibalize established brands to your profit.
Yeah, I love it. Some really fascinating stuff. I mean, these conversations, I could always have them for hours because we always get so much value. I mean, I write down probably more than most people do because it's all fascinating stuff for me. But look, let's have another look. We've got a question here actually from Johnny. Let's take this one. What is the biggest impediment to optimizing search engine results? What sort of things do get in the way or cause problems when you're trying? Is it like you said, people trying to be too vague or trying to dominate a key term that's just too big? Like you said, food franchise or the word franchise, it's such a big term. It's going to be something that's competed for by the people who I guess are paying for it.
So
but any other problems?
Yeah, so I'd say I'll give two answers. One, for the larger organizations, that's the red tape. That's just the fact that the website is the property of X number of people across Y number of departments, and that to change a piece of code or revise the organization of the website or update the content, it's challenging, right? It takes time. And so that's the issue with that's the largest impediment to the search engine optimization process. When it comes to smaller organizations, I would say it's not a technical issue, it's impatience. Is that we live in a society where we think that everything can be done quickly, and we should have results overnight, and that's not what SEO is about. So if you're going into the effort with that thought process, you're going to be up for some disappointment, because either one of two things are going to happen. Either you're not going to see results, and you're going to say, well, they're incompetent, they're not I'm not getting results fast enough, and I'll fire those people. And then you go to the next one, and then you will get exactly the same result, or you will get the alternate answer, which is you will get kind of magically, but then things will bomb out on you, right? Which means that the way that you obtain results on short order when it comes to search engine optimization is not something that's going to last and be to your benefit, because your website will get blacklisted and delisted essentially from Google, and then you get into a whole different rabbit hole essentially that you have to get out of. And we have many customers. Actually, we have many customers that came to us because they were exactly in that situation where you need first, before rebuilding anything, you need first to sort out the current situation.
Of course. No, absolutely. Let's go to a few comments. We are drawing towards the end, but the comments are still flying in. And I want to draw on a few things about an element of our conversation, because we have a conversation here, and it's to inspire thought, it's to inspire questions, and it's not necessarily to give always the answers here. But Natalia is our resident legal beagle, I like that expression, and she's just put, you've got to be careful with comparative advertising, naming a competitor. There are very specific rules in place and you could get in hot water. Well, look, it's great advice, and I think the advice always is to seek professional advice in whatever you're doing, and that's always going to be the best route.
So in the US, in the US, you have some quite a bit of leeway, right? More than in most European countries, right? When it comes to competitive advertising, but even in the US, you have to be careful. Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And the nice thing about it, about the legal world is that usually the lawyers will need to send a cease and to make sure that before that they actually came in front of the judge, because that typically would be the first thing that the judge will ask for. Did you send a cease and desist letter? And so you get a warning, you get a forewarning that we're pushing it a little bit, and we need to adjust.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a few comments have come in on this. I think the best thing to do on that is always to reach out to a professional, and I think it's sort of delving into a topic that we could have a separate show on. I mean, we may well do in the future as well. It's always good to have one on the sort of the legal and the ethical parts of how you can best place yourself within your competitors, and we'll certainly look at that. Before we start to conclude things today, I just want to put up the fact that we've got Joe Caruso here. I'm a big fan of Joe and Mike, and I always used to listen to their audio show all about franchising, so it's always great to have Joe here when he can be. And he's put, "Hey, Michel Leconte, good to see you good to see you live on LinkedIn, bud." It's great to have you here, Joe.
Good to see you, Joe.
Look, we have come to the end today. The good news is, though, we are going to have Michel back on probably multiple times next year. So this conversation absolutely is going to continue. So look out for episodes into 2025, because I assure you that Michel will be back on, and we will have many more fascinating conversations all about search engine optimization and local marketing and national marketing. But today has been a fascinating conversation. Before we get into saying what's on next week, I'd just like to give you, Michel, a final chance to give us sort of a finishing piece about SEO and the best way to get in touch with you, although there is a wonderful QR code right on the screen at this moment, so that can help on that respect. But yeah, perhaps your final thoughts on SEO after today's conversation.
Yeah, well, when it comes to SEO, I think that you got if you look at two types of efforts. One is embedding SEO within your operations, finding ways to embed SEO within your operation. That will be a sure winner, right? And then keeping in mind that SEO is an ongoing process, right? So that's the good news, is that nature never fails, and this is organic. So you might not succeed immediately, you might stumble, but if you have the that orientation, that is that this is an ongoing process. You'll pick yourself back up, and you'll make definite progress, right? And you can build on those efforts over time.
Fantastic. Well, look, we have now drawn to a conclusion. So first of all, I would like to thank our wonderful community, our wonderful audience. This show is what it is because of you. Quite simply, it's because of you, and it's because of the engagement, the questions, the conversations that we have. So it's always with huge honor and thanks that goes to you for joining us here live for the Franchise Show. And I would like to thank you again, Michel, for your time, for your support. It's much appreciated, and it's been a fantastic episode. Thank you again. So let's have a look at what we've got coming up. So this week on Franchising Brand Stories, our wonderful sister show, we have a delicious episode coming up. We are going to find out what's under the hat of heavenly desserts. So grab a spoon and dig in for that delicious episode.
Sweet tooth.
That's going to be yeah, exactly. That's going to be this Thursday, 5:15 GMT, 12:15 EST. So please join us for that one. And next week on the Franchise Show, it's going to be an interesting one. We are going to be speaking to the lovely Amrit from Wallfinch. Now, it's going to be a great conversation because we are talking about franchise competitors. You know, we started to have a little bit of a conversation today about competition and how we navigate that. So it's a lovely segue into next week's topic. So if you've enjoyed today's, please join us next week for that. Really looking forward to hearing your thoughts. So there we go. We've come to the end of another fantastic episode. Thanks to you all once again. And until next time, take very good care. Cheerio.
Thank you. Thank you, Harvey. Thank you, everybody.